You never know who's going to call in. We've been talking about the campaigns back and forth, and joining us on the phone, candidate for Texas 19, Jodey Arrington. Mr. Arrington, welcome to the show.
I just can't get enough of the Chad Hasty show.
Well, I appreciate you giving us a call today. Let's talk about some of the back and forth between you and Glen's campaign. Yesterday, you had three former Board of Regents come out and say that when it came to tuition, and especially the issue of in-state tuition for illegal immigrants, that you had nothing to do with that. I'll just ask you this right out. Do you support in-state tuition for illegal immigrants?
Absolutely not. And repeatedly, Chad, at forums and debates throughout this 29-county district, when asked, and we're asked often because this is the number one issue, national security. I believe it's a national security issue. When asked about illegal immigration and border security, one of the key strategies, along with empowering the Border Patrol and using the military, I think it's an appropriate use of the military, is cutting off the magnets. Again, I've said it over and over.
Right.
We cannot keep providing taxpayer-funded services for people who are here, A, illegally, B, not paying into the system, just taking from the system. And it's an incentive to draw people here, and we've got to cut off the spigot of services that we can't, quite frankly, afford to pay for our own people, i.e. $19 trillion in debt. So whether it's in-state tuition or health care or public education, remember I made the point that this would be like me saying, okay, Glen Robertson was on the school board. He's talked about his service on the school board. He's been on 2 school boards. Well, during that time, because of federal law, public schools have to allow kids of illegal immigrants to enroll. But I'm not going to say that that's Glen Robertson's fault, because that would be ridiculous. And I'm just not going to make stuff up like that and pin stuff on people. I'm trying to hold Glen Robertson accountable for the things that he should be, and that is his record of voting to increase taxes and promising to cut the debt by 20%, and the debt has increased. It's now over $1 billion. Those are the things that I think are open for debate and criticism and discussion. But this is ridiculous, and I'm glad that the Regents, two former chairmen, while I was there, have spoken. So I hope my statement here with you, and I hope their statements have brought clarity to the minds of the voters.
Well, I want to get a couple more statements from you.
Yeah,
sure. As far as immigration goes, because in one of the latest ads, they hit you, I think, for that you would be endorsing amnesty, that you would be going along with the D.C. Insiders Amnesty Plan. If you were in Washington, D.C., and the issue of border security is we've got a wall, we've got whatever you want on the border, it's done. Now comes the point where we have to do something about those who are in the country illegally. What do you support?
Well, we don't. What I support is not having to take that issue and start working that policy issue before you secure the border, because people want to talk about the legal immigration process and that it's broken. And I do, by the way, think it is broken. But nobody wants to talk about those issues and deal with them until we have done our first job to keep Americans safe, and that is secure the border. And I think Glenn and I have both been on record in that regard. Do I think it's practical to ship 11 million? I bet there's more, but 11 million is the statistic that's thrown out there. Send all 11 million folks who are here illegally back. I don't think that's practical. And what you do with them, and how I do think the ones that have come over here recently under the Obama administration's DACA and DAPA policies and catch and release, I think you can send millions of illegal immigrants back who have come over here recently. But no, I think there is probably some common sense solution for those, not to give them citizenship, by the way, but put them in line, give them some temporary work permit, where they would be paying into the system, paying taxes. Anybody that doesn't abide by the law, all of them from the very first that have come over here to the most recent, all go back. Anybody that's violated the law. So there's probably some common sense way to deal with the folks who've been here for years on account of failed leadership in Washington by not securing the border and not enforcing our immigration laws. But no, I'm not for amnesty. I don't think either candidate. I don't think any of the candidates of the 9 who've run for Congress are for amnesty.
Jodey, I want to ask you about a press release that your campaign just sent out. And it says this: Glen's got a problem because of his record of increasing taxes on our hardworking citizens, hardworking residents, increasing spending on things we don't want or don't need, like Citizens Tower, and staggering debt that he's left others to deal with. On Citizens Tower, he voted against that. Is your campaign kind of playing fast and loose here with the language, or are you accusing him of supporting Citizens Tower?
Well, he voted against it before he voted for it. I can't remember if that was John Kerry who said that in a debate, but he voted for $65 million to renovate Citizens Tower. So if he were against it, why would he vote to renovate it and spend tens of millions of dollars in taxpayer funds after the citizens, through the Citizens Advisory Board, spoke and said, do not use money for this purpose, but invest it in public safety. And by doing that, you could use these certified obligation bonds where you don't have to go back to where you don't have to go to the citizens because it's a public safety issue. But yeah, I think my understanding is he voted against it, and then he voted for the $65 million renovation. And here's the irony: he's talked about some $90,000 that in an ad that I spent to, quote, redecorate my office. That is the biggest bunch of bull I've ever heard. And Texas Tech had to put a statement out to refute that, saying how cost-effective it was relative to other office repurposes, and that there wasn't one decorative item in all of it. It was to repurpose 3 offices into one under the umbrella of my new job as vice chancellor. So he's talking about a $90,000 quote redecoration, which is dishonest. When he voted for $65 million to renovate a downtown building, dilapidated building that he voted for, that's going to move City Hall to this new Omni building or Citizens Tower. So I think I stand by that statement.
Okay.
On both the debt, on the taxes, and on spending. Spending has increased 4 years, year over year, while he's been the mayor. And he did run. If you watch his campaign ads, he said he was going to cut 20% of the debt. When I was on your show for the debate, I held up what was straight from the city's website, the list of debt without interest every year that he's been mayor, and it went from $988 million to just over $1 billion in 4 years. So, I mean, what's conservative about that is what I want to ask you and the listeners. I mean, to run on those promises and then to have a record like I just described, what's fiscally conservative about that? When the biggest challenge to my children and to the grandchildren of those who are listening to the show is the $19 trillion in debt. That ISIS is important. We got to deal with it. We've got to destroy them, and every other terrorist organization. Illegal immigration is important, and it's a drag on our economy, and it's a public safety issue. But I think that the long-term, biggest long-term challenge is to govern ourselves, to live within our means, and to turn the tide on our reckless spending and this debt that is going to shackle the next generation of Americans. If that's true, then you've got a mayor who has got 4 years of a record, and quit listening to all the noise and the baloney that he's putting out there in his false claims and attack ads, and look at the record. Go on the city website, and I think it'll be very clear, abundantly clear to the voters, and then we can have what I believe is an honest assessment of the candidates, and neither of us are perfect, but we need to be talking about our records. And he hadn't said one thing. In all the money he has spent, he spent his own money, over $1 million, or close to $1.5 million on ads and mailers, ads on TV, and not once has he said anything about his record as mayor.
Jodey Arrington, candidate for Congress, Texas 19. Appreciate you calling us.
Thanks, Chad.